sweeties, how are you doing today? Hope you're all doing well. Today's class is going to be reading, but before I start with the class, I just want to say a note regarding the homeworks or the assignments. The students who are asking me why we're not taking any assignment, that's because of the exams period. So that's why I don't upload any page either from the book, from the booklet, or a Word document, whatever. I don't upload such after the class because there are no homeworks. So you just need to watch the class, focus on your exams. When you finish the exams, we would go back to the assignments. And any grammar or any class we took before without any homework, we will go back to it. So I'll make a revision for it, and then we will do some exercises together, and I'll give you a homework regarding it, because I know the homework is an important way for you to know if you understand very well or no. Okay, that's regarding the homeworks, the assignments, because I just saw more than one question. Okay, now we are going to revise the vocabulary, the case of gas being garbage. Okay, so we will take the third and the last part today. So we're going to finish the story today. Okay, before we just read the part that we didn't read yet, let's revise the vocabulary that we took last time. I know we revised them more than one time, but it is better for you to revise the vocabs more than one time so you can understand them and you can memorize them easily. Okay, so analysis, it means when you study the details of the thing you are talking about. You are talking about wild animals, you are making analysis, so you're studying the conclusion, you're studying any small detail about this topic. You analyze it. Beakers, these are the beakers as I told you that we find in any science lab. They are glass containers. Hollow is an empty space when you're having an empty space inside. So something, when you look inside it, you just find nothing, empty. Identity, it shows who you are or what is the thing that you are talking about. So when I show the identity of a person, I'm telling you who is this person. If I'm showing an identity of a thing, I'm showing you what is this thing exactly. Lecture is an educational speech in front of audience, like what we take in universities. Microscope is a device that we use so we can see the small things that we can't see with our eyes. Anything we can't see with our eyes, if we look in the microscope, we can see. Okay, precise, it means very exact, accurate. When you give an information and you give it the exact information, you are accurate person. Relentless, you never stop. You continue on your aim. You never show that you're giving up. You complete whatever you have, whatever difficulties you just face. Okay, this is regarding the vocabs. As we all learned, the genre of this story is realistic fiction. And when we say realistic fiction, it means a real story. It's not necessary it's happened with you, but it could happen with you because it has real characters and real setting, and the problems are real. They could happen with anybody of us. Okay. Well, here is the story link. I think you got it from before. The story is talking about the two main characters, Nell Fossey and Drake Doyle. Nell Fossey and Drake Doyle are the science detectives. They are super clever. They work on science to find always the right answers and only the right answers. And they go for any problem, anybody needs help, and they just work hard until they find the right answer for any clue they have. Okay, we finished the vocabulary part. Okay, the characters again, Doyle, Nell Fossey, Gabby, and Frisco. Now, Dark, Doyle, and Nell Fossey are the science detectives. They work together. Gabby is the girl who has a problem with the garbage. She started hearing a voice coming from the garbage, so she thought it would be a monster. So she called Dark and Nell so they can solve her problem. Frisco is the competitor. He competes the both science detectives and he wants to show them that he is better than them. Okay. Now the head scientists are Dark Doyle and his partner Nell Fossey. The setting, it was in Doyle's lab, in his lab, and it was in Gabby's garbage next to the furnace, which is the oven. The problem started when Gabby called Doyle because she believes that there is a monster in her garbage can. And the solution when both of the science detectives started to solve the problem, they went to Gabby's house and they started taking notes and making observations. And then when they couldn't solve it, they took the can with them to the lab and they started to work really hard to make more observations so they can know what is inside the can. The last part we stopped on last time was the question, what did they find in the garbage can? Now, they started to solve the problem and we were really good, but until this moment we didn't know what was inside this can. Okay, so let's read a bit and then we can go back to see what did they find. Okay, we reached page 38, so if you have the books, please all of you to page 38.
Doyle always cooked from her vegetarian menu whenever Nell was around, because Nell was a vegetarian. Drake and Nell washed their hands and sat at Drake's desk, knowing they should never eat or drink while conducting experiments. They were top-notch scientists.
Okay, the last part we stopped on when his mother and father came and one of them made food for them, for Nell and Drake and Nell. The kind of food was vegetarian from a vegetarian menu simply because Nell was vegetarian. They know as scientists they never eat, they shouldn't eat while doing experiments or solving problems because they were top-notch scientists. Top-notch, it means when you're talking about an excellent scientist or a scientist of the highest quality, he knows every single rule, every single detail, and he really applies it. Okay.
After supper, Nell called her mother and asked if she could stay extra late, given that there was no school tomorrow and that they were swamped with experiments and under a deadline.
Okay, since they have to work with the problem with the garbage can and they need a lot of time, after they finished supper, of course supper is the evening meal. Okay, when they finished supper, Nell had to call her mom because she has to take permission so she can stay late in the lab to solve the problem and she couldn't go to school next day.
Ann Fossey was a biology professor at Mossy Lake University. Her specialty was wildlife biology. "Goodness gracious sakes alive!" exclaimed Professor Fossey. "Sounds like..."
Okay, now on this paragraph, they're just defining or presenting the mom, Nell's mom. Nell's mom is Anne Fossey. Okay, she is a professor, majored in biology, and she studies and teaches about wildlife in a university. Okay, now how was her reaction regarding her daughter's being late working on an experiment? Did she agree or not?
Goodness gracious sakes alive, exclaimed Professor Fossey. Sounds like you're a busy scientist. Now don't you worry about a thing, my dear. I'll be sure to feed your rats and lizards. And don't forget my snakes and bugs. Of course, dear, said Professor Fossey. I'll leave the light on for you. Finally, after midnight, they had their answer. In the morning, Nell hurried back to Drake's house. They called Gabby first thing. Meet us in...
Okay, so it seems that Nell's mom was really kind and she accepted. She was okay. She also offered help for her daughter, so she's really kind. At the end, in the morning, and finally they found the solution for the can, and they knew what is inside it. The first thing they did to call Gabby to tell her what did they find. So let's see what was the thing.
The lab, said Nell. We've discovered the identity of the monster.
So he just called Gabby and told her to meet in the lab because they found the identity of the monster. So they knew what is the monster, what kind of monsters it is, and they knew everything about it, so they have to tell Gabby.
After Gabby arrived, Drake paced the floor, while Nell sat on a stool. You see, Ms. Tallberg, Drake was saying, it's really quite simple. Nell? Thank you, Detective Doyle. First of all, said Nell, the garbage can sounded hollow when we tapped on it. Second, the garbage can wasn't too heavy. You see, Ms. Tallberg, said Drake, most monsters are quite heavy. In addition, added Nell.
Okay, as a scientist, he can't go through the answer directly, so he can't just meet Gabby and tell her, hey Gabby, we just found what is inside your garbage and it is whatever. No, he needs to give ideas, he needs to explain before he just says what was inside the garbage. So, number one, he said that your garbage can sounded hollow, as if there is nothing inside it. Number two, it wasn't too heavy, although most monsters are quite heavy, but your garbage can was not heavy. Number three, it stood or just stayed in a very warm environment. So the garbage can was in a very warm environment. It was next to the oven, so it was really warm. And number four, the garbage can smelled like bread. So he gave all of these hypotheses and he gave all of these points and ideas before he tells her what was inside the can. Number one, the can sounded hollow. Number two, it wasn't heavy. Number three, it was next to a warm environment, next to the oven. And number four, it smelled like bread.
Remember, your dad is a baker, said Drake. The best baker around, to be exact. Therefore, based on the clues and our observations, I developed an educated guess, what we scientists call a hypothesis. I believed that the monster lurking inside your garbage can was not really a monster at all, but...
Okay, so...
Let's think about it.
Okay, wait.
How do you know?
You just think of it. It was not heavy. Although it should be heavy if there is a monster, it was living in a warm environment and it smells like bread. And in addition to all of this, her dad is a baker. He bakes bread. So what do you think was inside the garbage can? Since it is living in a warm environment, it is not heavy and it smells like bread, and her father was a baker. Okay.
Yes, asked Gabby, her eyes wide.
Okay, she was really excited to know. Yes, and her eyes were wide because she just wants to know what was inside. She's super excited.
Yeast, said Drake. Pure and simple, yeast. Yeast? Yes, yeast. Allow scientist Nell to explain.
So they finally got it, and they said that what was inside the garbage can is a yeast. I know, or I'm not sure if you know what is the yeast, so I'm going to show you a picture. The yeast is this kind of powder that we use, mostly we use to make a dough. And this kind of yeast is the only ingredient that gives the dough this shape. It allows the dough to become bigger, okay, to just oversize. So this is the yeast. I hope you got it. Your moms always use it when she makes dough for pizza, for bread, whatever. Okay. So
Nell pointed to it.
He just told her that it is yeast, and of course he can't just leave her without an answer, so he needs to explain how it is yeast.
Nell pointed to a chalkboard with her long wooden pointer. As I said, the smell of fresh-baked bread was our biggest clue. You see, yeast is used in making bread. Yeasts are tiny plants that eat starches and sugars. They then turn the starches and sugars into alcohol and carbon dioxide gas. Garbage can clues. 1. Sounded hollow. 2. Wasn't heavy. 3. Warm environment. 4. Smelled like bread. 5. Gabby's dad, a baker.
So all of these are clues or hypotheses for their experiment. It sounded hollow, wasn't heavy, warm environment, smelled like bread, and her father was a baker. Plus, when you just mix yeast with sugar and starches, it turns into alcohol or carbon dioxide gas. So it turns into a gas, which is CO2. What would happen when we mix yeast with sugar? Let's see this video so you can get the idea better. Okay, look here. Here you can find a... Okay, here is water, okay? And here are 4 water bottles, okay? This man put 1 cup of water in each bottle, okay? Okay, did you notice what happened? He put a cup of water in each bottle, okay? And then he put yeast first in each water bottle, okay? And then he put he put yeast in each okay, he added a teaspoon of sugar, okay, for each bottle. But before this, he added yeast, okay? Yes, he added yeast first, and then he added sugar in each bottle. But the first bottle, he didn't put sugar. The second, he put only 1 teaspoon. The third, he put 2 teaspoons. And the last, he put 3 teaspoons. So what happened when he put the balloons, the last one was the biggest. Why? Because he put more sugar with the yeast here. And sugar with yeast gives us a carbon dioxide, CO2 gas. Okay? So, going back here.
The tiny bubbles in bread, said Drake, are the result of carbon dioxide gas. Nell tapped the chalkboard with her pointer. You see, Gabby, your dad must have thrown away a combination of yeast and flour, ingredients used in baking bread, easily purchased at any grocery store. Drake pushed up his glasses. With the right amount of moisture and a warm environment.
Okay, so what happened is her father, the baker, had thrown away a combination of yeast and flour, okay? And the garbage can was in a warm environment. So what would happen?
The yeast was able to grow and multiply by feeding on the flour inside the can, finished Drake. Quite harmless, really, but the yeast produced so much carbon dioxide gas that the garbage can simply had to burp to release some of the gas.
Okay, so flour with yeast in a can with a warm environment. So what would happen to the yeast? The yeast would be able to grow, okay? When the yeast grows, it gives more carbon dioxide gas, okay? So when it gives this gas and when it starts to grow, the garbage can would move because of the thing that is growing bigger and bigger inside it. So when the yeast was growing bigger and bigger, the can was moving. That's why she thought that there was a monster.
We tested our hypothesis, said Nell, with a thorough set of experiments. We examined the yeast under the microscope and grew it in several different mediums. We've positively identified yeast as your culprit. You can be certain there is no monster inside your garbage can. Naturally, Gabby was a little disappointed. After all, yeast was not as exciting as a blood-sucking monster.
Okay, so she wanted to have a monster inside her garbage can. So she was not really happy when she knew that there was no monster. She was disappointed because she wanted to see a monster inside her can.
She shook their hands anyway for a job well done. I knew you could do it, she said. I can't wait to tell all my friends. Nell handed Gabby their business card. Call us. Anytime. Later that day, Drake wrote in his lab notebook, Monster analysis a success. Hypothesis correct. Received 2 prize loaves of bread, extra raisins, extra nuts, as payment. Rating on the delicious scale, 10. Paid in full.
Okay, so their experiment was also a success and their problem solved. It was not easy to solve it. It took a lot of time, it took a lot of efforts, and they went deeply into each and single detail to know what was the problem and what was inside the garbage can, but finally they could do it. Simply because these two science detectives are really clever and they really work hard to get to reach to their goal, to their aim. The opposite of their competitor, Frisco. Frisco didn't know how to behave well with people, and he didn't know how to work well as a professional science detective. So, if we just talk about what he just found, or what did they find in the garbage can, they found thrown away yeast and flour her dad was using while making bread. So the yeast was growing up inside the can because of the warm environment. That's why the can was moving. So if we're talking about the main idea or the theme of the story, we can simply say that hard working is the key to reach your aim and to achieve your goal. If you want to go to somewhere, if you want to reach to a goal, you have to really work hard. If you work hard, you get it. If you don't work hard, you don't get it. Never be in a competition unless you are 100%. It should be 100%. Okay? You should be 100% sure that you can do it. So, if you want to compete people, if you want to be a good competitor, okay, you have to make sure that you are 100%. I am sure I have the self-confidence that I can do it. I have the knowledge that I can do it. If you can do it, so go into a competition. If you can't do it, do not go into a competition, especially with clever people. Okay, point of view or POV. If you remember, point of view is talking about who's telling the story. Is it told by a main character from the story, or it is told by another narrator who is not from one of the characters? The point of view in our story is third person point of view. So we have third person point of view. When we say third person point of view, it means the narrator tells us about what's happening in the story, and he shows us everything regarding the thoughts and the feelings and the character itself. But the narrator, the one who's telling the story, is not one of the characters. So the point of view POV is third person narrator, since the narrator is not one of the main characters in the story. So we talked about the genre, we talked about the vocabulary, we talked about the characters, setting, problem, solution, and the main idea or the theme of the story, and the point of view. You don't have any homework, but if you have any question about any specific detail, any word, any vocab, whatever you have, just send me a message. And if you have time after studying for your exam, you can read the story again so you can get the idea. You can see if you have any questions, so you ask me. Have a nice day for each one of you.